Hello, how is everyone doing? For us, I know that these steps and bytes is starting a little bit earlier than we used to do in the past, but we like now we are 2 hours ahead from Scottsdale, so it's 5 p.m. for us. So I'm very sorry for everyone that we that we interrupted your usual schedule, but thanks for being here. Okay, so I'm gonna start Eric with the introduction and then I will leave you with the presentation. Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today's presenter is Eric Rios. He's a senior software engineer here at Nextiva Mexico. He has his Nextiva Mexico t-shirt. And I'm also in uniform today, so we are all like super ready. If you don't know Eric, he's a backend engineer. He has been at Nexiva for more than 1 year. He's part of the Ajolotuls team. He's working in Nexiva Connect, and correct me, Eric, if I'm saying something wrong. And currently, he's living in the state of Veracruz. This is a state located along the Gulf of Mexico, so if you ever go to Veracruz, you can say hello to Eric. Okay, let me just tell you that we will have a Kahoot trivia at the end, so stay tuned if you want to win some Uber Eats vouchers for the weekend. And that's all I've got. You can take it away, Eric. Thank you for doing this.
Mhm. Thank you, Norma. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for joining. As Norma says, I'm going to present you how to keep your Maven dependencies up to date in a non-tedious way. This is the table of contents, the things that we are viewing today. First, just a refresher, what's Maven? The dependency mechanism of Maven, how does it work? What problems we might face when dealing with dependencies within Maven? What are some good versioning, good practices to avoid those problems? What tools can we use to keep up our dependencies up to date and avoid things? And I'll wrap up at the end where we have conclusions, questions, and answers. So let's start. First, what's Apache Maven? Well, Maven is a Yiddish word that means accumulator of knowledge. Basically, Apache Maven is a software project management and comprehension tool. But what does this mean? Basically, this means that based on the concept of a project object model, the pom.xml that you are, if you are developing in Java here in Nextiva and in maybe in many places because Maven is widely used, you will see that Maven can manage the project's build, the reporting, and documentation from this central piece of information. Basically, everything is gathered from the POM XML in our projects. And what can Maven do for us with this POM XML? Well, it can do several things, but three of those stand out. First, it helps us building projects, makes the build process easy, and provides a uniform build system that can be reused, and the build will run exactly the same in whenever you build your project. It doesn't matter if it is running on your computer or my computer, the building process will be exactly the same. Managing. Also, Maven will provide information about the dependencies of the project, unit test reports, and so on. So it makes the management of a project better. And of course, Maven also guides us. Maven provides some best practices, for example, directory layouts, naming conventions, so that everyone who uses Maven to organize the project will be familiar when approaching, reading, or developing another project. So these are some standards within Maven. Also, in our building phase, do you remember that Maven helped us? We have something called the dependency mechanism. With the dependency mechanism, Maven helps us a great deal in defining, creating, and maintaining reproducible builds with well-defined class paths and library versions. And this dependency mechanism is one of the main things we're going to focus today. What does the dependency mechanism consist of? Mainly, it depends on 6 things. First, it manages transitive dependencies. That is, it includes dependencies of your dependencies automatically. So you just need to define in your POM XML certain dependencies, and then if those projects depend on other ones, all those will be included automatically. You don't need to define them by yourself. So this makes the dependency declaration in your POM easier. What is the dependency mediation? If you have in your whole dependency tree more than one version of a certain dependency, let's say you depend on Spring Web and you have several dependencies of Spring Web in your modules you are depending on, then Maven picks the closest dependency to your project so that you don't have to fight to decide which version is going to be picked up. Maven has a default in case you don't want to deal with that. But if you want to deal with that, Maven also offers dependency management so that you can directly specify the version of artifacts, being direct or transitive, that you want to use in your project. We also have dependency scopes within Maven. So that is, we have several phases when we are building. We have a compile time, we have a test time, we have a runtime time, and in each of these scopes, we need certain dependencies that we don't need in others. And that's something that Maven offers, to only include the dependencies appropriated for the current stage of the build. We also have dependency exclusion. This allows us to explicitly exclude transitive dependencies that we may not need in our current building, and also offers the option to declare optional dependencies. Those are dependencies that are excluded by default. So basically, these are the things that the dependency mechanism consists of. We are going with a sample here just to remember one main thing about Maven, about how does the mediation. If I ask you, do you see here that we have the meeting service, which depends on 2 services that we have in Nextiva, calendar and media call. And let's say that calendar depends on user management service and depends on a certain version of Nextiva REST client. And media call service also depends on the Nextiva REST client. Those are the transitive dependencies, and Maven has a way to resolve which version will be chosen. So someone wants to raise your hand and tell us which version will be chosen? Someone knows which version?
You can just
If nobody
unmute,
knows.
add it to the chat, whatever everyone prefers. We have one, version 1.10.
Exactly. Why? Because version 1.10 is the closest to our module in the dependency tree. We have meeting service that has 2 levels to Nextiva REST client through media call service. As calendar has 3 nodes to Nextiva REST client, so it will not be used. What happens if we do this? Basically, we are defining Nextiva REST client as a direct dependency of meeting service. And now, as we have it closer to our meeting service, we are overriding the versions that we have in a transitive way. And so this is the way to override our version and define exactly which version do we want. So this is how the dependency mediation works in Maven. Now, dealing with dependencies, we can have some problems. Some problems may arise. So we have a problem with versioning because maybe if our project grows a lot and we don't take care since the beginning, and we have multimodal projects that we have in Nextiva, versions can be declared anywhere. And if they are declared anywhere, it becomes a trouble to update them. Also, we may have scoping problems when we define wrong scopes for our dependencies. We need to make sure that we only declare the needed dependencies at the scope that we really need them. And also, and this is a big problem, laziness. Usually, our dependencies are set up just once, and then we forget about them. And this leads to our libraries being outdated, or projects never being updated. And so we slack up on the dependency versions that we are using. So here is a phrase that says, a good parent gives the same treatment to all his child. And a good parent POM gives the same artifact versions to all his child. That was me. I just wrote that on for this presentation. This is just basically to remember one of the good practices that we have within Maven. That is for handling versioning. Let's show up a sample. Here, I show you one of the projects I'm working on, platform meeting orchestration. We have the parent POM here, and you will see that we are declaring the dependency versions on properties. You will see that we have Spring Boot there as 2.5.7. And you will also see that we have Nextiva Spring Boot OAuth version there in properties, 1.13.0. Also, you will see that in the dependency management section, I'm declaring dependencies that use the version declared in the properties. And we are using a $sign and we are using curved braces to gather the property value that is up there. Something important here is that sometimes libraries are composed of several modules. For example, log4j. Log4j2 contains lots of modules. Contains the core, contains something, several modules. And for easier importing, usually the library maintainers export a special POM that is called a bill of materials. Basically, we can import a bill of materials and then import all the dependency versions of a certain group of dependencies to make our life easier. I'm going to show you an example of bill of materials a little bit later. And something important here is that we do not declare the scope in the parent POM. We just declare the version here. Another phrase. A good parent allows to express individuality to all his child. A good parent POM allows to choose the artifacts and scopes to all his child. So this translated becomes something like this. Now we are going to handle the scoping. Now you are seeing the POM of one of the child modules of the parent POM that I showed you in a slide before. Here, you will see that I'm going to declare only the dependencies needed. You don't see dependency management section here that belongs to the parent. And here in dependencies, I'm not declaring the version so that every child that needs a certain dependency uses the version that is given by the parent. Basically, the parent decides all the versions of the artifacts that we are going to use in the child, so that we use the same version. And here, we are declaring the scope when we need it. Springboard out, it's a dependency that we need at compile time and runtime. So basically, we leave it just like that. Springboard starter test, we only need that library when doing the testing phase. So that's why the scope is there, so that it doesn't end up in the artifact we generate and upload to the Artifactory in Nextiva, to the Nexus. So basically, this is to keep our jar as small as possible. We still have a problem. We still have a problem of updating our dependencies versions by hand. And this is a problem that arises as long as we keep adding more and more dependencies. If we have less than 5 dependencies, we say in the morning, maybe in the afternoon I'm going to update them. If we have between 5 and 20, we say maybe tomorrow. But if we have more than 20, we just pray that Veracode doesn't throw something at or an vulnerability or something. So I'm going to say that there is a solution for your laziness regarding updating dependencies. And this solution is the Mofo House versions Maven plugin. This plugin is used to manage the versions of artifacts in a project POM. And how we can use it? And you see there an example of a parent POM where I'm declaring in the section called plugin management a plugin that is called versions Maven plugin. Of course, I declared the version in a property too. And also, I declare it itself in the plugin section of the parent POM because that's the place where I'm going to run this plugin. And when you use it, you can run one of the several predefined goals that this plugin offers. I'm just going to focus on 2 predefined goals here. One is to display property updates, and another is to display parent updates. There are lots of predefined goals that this plugin offers, but I'm just going to focus on 2 just for the sake of this presentation. And now it's demo time. How can I escape from? Okay, here it is. Okay, I'm going to show you my IntelliJ. I'm not really sure if you can see it or if it's too small, the size of the font.
It is a little bit
You
small,
can read it?
Eric. Yeah. If you could zoom.
Okay, I'm going to change settings a little bit here. I'm not sure if this will be better for you.
Oh, we lost your screen.
Lost my screen.
You stopped sharing.
Okay.
If you can share again.
Yeah. Just give me a couple of seconds. You can see it?
Yes.
It looks, yes.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay. As I mentioned it before, we have around here, I have a parent POM. I have a platform mailing service, and the POM at the top level is my parent POM. Here it is. And I have here my dependencies versions annotated in properties. I also have here my dependency management section so that I define all the versions of certain modules so that our child doesn't use different versions. And here at the bottom, you will see my plugin and that I'm importing the versions Maven plugin. So I'm going to run some run configurations that I used to save here just for laziness. You will see that I'm working in the platform mailing service directory and then I'm going to run a Maven execution, and then I'm going to run versions display property updates. I have it just grow there. I will also show you that if you use IntelliJ, you will see a Maven section here at the right level. If you click on it, you will see that you have all your projects here. And here, you can go to the parent, you can go to the plugins, and you will see here that we have the versions plugin, because IntelliJ is smart enough to show us all the things that this has. This is all the predefined goals that I talked to you that this plugin has. I'm going to focus just on two. So I'm going to run first this one that says display parent updates. If I run this and we just wait a little bit, that's it. It builds success. And if you scroll up, you will see here that the parent project has a newer version. You will see here that it is reporting for us that an artifact that belongs to Nextiva has a newer version. In this test that I created here, we're using the 2.19, and the newer one is 2.21.0. If you remember, it was released just a few days ago. And basically, you can get the dependency version just by running this command. Also, I wanted to show you the display property updates. This basically will scan all the properties that we defined here and will look for versions that are greater than the ones that we have declared here. So I'm going to run this one. It does its scans. And basically, we are going to scroll a little bit. And here we will see the report. It is telling us that we are using the newest available version for these things. For Maven plugin, for the Maven versions, Mongo, Spring Boot Medics, Spring Boot out, and it will tell us which versions are we slacking off. For example, for the calendar orchestration client, I'm slacking off. There is a newer version published. Guava also has a newer version. Swagger, I'm not really sure if it has a newer version of the package because this is a release candidate. So that one I will need to verify manually in the Maven repo to see if there is a newer version. Same for Maven Surefire because M5 would mean milestone 5, not exactly a release version. Model Mapper has a newer version. MongoDB driver, hopefully we have releases for 4.3, 4.5, and this is an alpha. I'm not going to use the alpha. That's why I like to use the display property updates. Just to, it shows me which versions may have newer versions, but it does not update my POM directly. It lets me decide by myself which versions am I going to update and how. But here, I just get which versions are meant that I should look for. The REST client, I need to update it. Swagger annotations, here is a newer one. And basically, this is how this plugin is used. You just run a goal, let's say display property updates, parent updates of one of the many that the plugin has around here. You can even double click here. Just display parent updates. You can double click it from this list and it will run for you. And you don't even need to create a run configuration. That's another way to execute this. And basically, that's what I wanted to show you here. So we'll go back to the slideshow. Just as a wrap up, we have some good practices to keep in mind when doing versioning and when doing scoping. Basically, for versioning, we keep and manage the versioning in the parent POM also of our multi-module projects. We declare the dependency versions on properties. We declare all the dependency versions in the dependency management section. We import bill of materials when possible, and we use the versions Maven plugin to keep versions up to date. Sorry, I promised you that I was going to show you a bomb. I'm going to do it right now. I forgot about it. Or Nestiva Spring Boot parent, if you do a command click here in Mac, is going to go and direct you to the POM parent. And basically here you can see and scroll that here we also have our properties defined here. We have our dependency management section, and you will see a special dependency here. You will see the log4j bill of materials. You see here that this import is different than the ones we have here, for example, for Spring Fox. You will see here that this type is a POM and that the scope is import. These are two main things that we need to follow when importing bill of materials. And what does this has? Basically, this POM. If we go here, command click again, we will see the bill of materials. And you will see here that in the dependency management section, they have all the modules that compose log4j. You will see log4j API, log4j core, layout template JSON, log4j JCL, Flume, Taglit, JMX guide, all the log4j modules. And so you just need to define here which version of the bill of materials you want to import, and then you won't worry about the version of the internal things inside. This is how a bill of materials works. That's something that I forgot. And now go back to the slideshow. So I told you all the versioning tips. And for scoping, just remember that the scoping, we do it per child in the per child POM. We declare only the needed dependencies by the child module, and we declare the scope when needed. So, someone has questions?
Any questions, team? You can just unmute yourselves, write your question in the chat, whatever you prefer. It works.
Yeah, I have a question, Eric. So when we have transitive dependencies at the same level, we usually have an error in Maven. So we can use the strategy that you mentioned that add a dependency directly to our POM, to our parent POM?
Yes. Yes.
Override?
Usually define the version you want to use in the dependency management section of your parent POM. That's where you declare the version, and that will override any version of the transitive dependencies you may have.
Yeah, but also another strategy that can work is using exclusions. So do you have any recommendation on when to use exclusions and when to force to use a particular version of the dependency?
Usually I will go for the dependency management property there, and just keep a comment there that you have a convergence problem, because that's the things that we have in Nextiva, right? We have a plugin that revisits the versions and still is on flashing, and we will see that here we need to solve convergence by hand. And so we have two ways to do it: via exclusion or do it via dependency management versioning. I would recommend the dependency management version, and just keep a note there that we choose that version due to a convergence problem. And also here are two things to keep in mind. If it is an open source project, well, you can't do much about it. Maybe just create a ticket in the GitHub or somewhere to say, hey, you need to update something. This dependency needs to be updated, or you can cooperate to open source project, do a small pull request just to update that dependency and see that nothing breaks. And if it is an internal module that also has some updated dependencies here inside Nextiva, you can go and look for the leader or the developer of that module and tell them, hey, you might need to update this because you are a little bit outdated. And that's totally fine. So I would like to add that the convergence should be solved by yourself within the dependency management. And once they solve the outdated versions, you can remove your section if you want it, so that you define lesser versions there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Eric. We have another question from Carlos. It says, what was the name of the plugin that you show us?
The name of the plugin is Versions Maven plugin. It's your Versions Maven plugin. And here it is. And the group ID or codehouse.mojo and the artifact ID Versions Maven plugin. This is it.
Thank you, Eric. Remember, team, that the presentation and also the recording will be available on Confluence tomorrow, so you can check this out later. And another question says, why use Maven when you have Gradle?
And well, they are the same thing in the fact that it is the same goals, basically. But first of the things here in Nextiva is that Maven is widely used here in Nextiva. I'm not really sure if, for example, we have Gradle ready, for example, in Jenkins. So I'm not really sure if we have support for that. That's something that we might need to ask the infrastructure or DevOps team, basically. And that's on the Nextiva side. On my preference side, for me, I prefer Maven because it's just a declaration. You declare things in your phone and you don't code anything. You just declare, and that's it. You don't do any of the code. When you use Gradle, you can start by doing declarations because Gradle has the DSL, but it also allows you to create scripts and do some coding there. But for me, that's going backwards to end from where we came from Java like 20 years ago. And if you are not careful with it, you can have a mess of your Gradle files, and they will be unmaintainable after a certain time if you abuse of the scripting that Gradle does for us. How can we solve this on the Maven side? Well, you create a plugin just like this one. If you want to create something outside of the plugins that we have in Nextiva or that are in the open source projects, then you can create your own plugin. But that's just my point of view. It doesn't mean that this is the view that we have at Nextiva. In Nextiva, I'm just really not sure if we have support for Gradle.
Thank you, Eric. And we have a triggered phase. And Carlos Lozano is asking, does it make sense to add this plugin as part of the Nextiva parent POM?
It could be. I will need to discuss it with Ergor, some of the other developers, maybe Matt, to discuss if it would be worth to add it to the Nextiva parent POM, or maybe, let's say, add it to the Maven archetype that we have for new projects. I will need to discuss with them if they see it a good fit for this plugin. But yeah, that's a good suggestion. Thank you.